Xinyu County, Young Mansion. A doctor carefully examines the newborn, observing its little fingers, while another man watches closely. He anxiously asks about the baby's condition. The doctor regrets that the baby will hardly live past 20 due to his constitution. Patriarch Young Demyoung questions whether the baby's short life is divine punishment for the mother's death. The doctor sighs, showing his frustration with the situation. The patriarch, skeptical, criticizes the doctor for his grim diagnosis. He is worried about his son's future and questions the doctor's prediction. The doctor explains that the baby's Baihui point is excessively open, similar to a spiritual ascension. The doctor explains that a very open Baihui means an early death, a phenomenon called divine ascension. The patriarch doubts the doctor's explanation of the divine ascension, considering it absurd. The doctor explains that great martial masters use the Baihui point and that the baby has it very open. The doctor describes the divine ascension as death from an excess of cosmic energy. The patriarch watches the baby with a serious and thoughtful expression. He walks away, showing indifference, concluding that the baby's short life is a divine punishment, and he orders the doctor to leave and take the payment. But the doctor claims he doesn't need the payment, leaving frustrated. He laments the baby's fate, considering his potential wasted, and it states that the baby will die young unless it achieves enlightenment on its own. 15 years later, at the Young Mansion, Patriarch Young Dae-myung, now older, talks about his dedication to revitalizing the clan, following in his late father's footsteps. He expresses his ambition to make the clan famous and inherit the Jongnan sect's techniques. He shows pride and satisfaction in his son's success in following in his footsteps and joining the Jongnan sect. Eldest brother with his wife congratulates the second brother on his entry into the Jongnan sect, finding it incredible. Patriarch Young Dae-myung asks everyone to toast the occasion. The older brother observes something with a slightly worried expression. There is an empty chair. The patriarch notices Yeonshin's absence. The eldest son explains that the youngest is at training camp. The patriarch believes that Yeonshin's presence would bring bad luck to the celebration. While observing the empty chair, a training room revealing an intense blue glow, it's Yeonshin, he appears, emanating a powerful aura. He demonstrates his powers with energy flowing around him with an intense look. He demonstrates a martial arts movement with intense energy. When he finishes his training, he observes his strength. He explains that he perfected the clan's martial art, achieving incredible strength, and he wonders whether his stronger body will increase his life expectancy. He reflects on the martial art he developed. The older brother asks about the martial art created by Yeonshin. He explains that he did not create the martial art from scratch, but rather perfected the clan's exclusive art. The older brother watches Yeonshin with a thoughtful expression and advises him not to tell anyone about his new martial art, leaving him confused with the advice. The second eldest brother asks Yeonshin if he wants him to learn the martial arts he created, and if he is ready to take responsibility if he dies. Yeonshin looks worried about his brother's question. He goes to his father, who is angry with him for tampering with the clan's exclusive martial art. Yeonshin remains unresponsive to the patriarch's reprimand. He feels completely alone and without support. He never saw himself as someone who created martial arts. He just wanted to become healthy and live with everyone. Sometime later, Yeonshin notices that the Jongnan sect masters are arriving. Two people talk about the visit of the Jongnan sect masters. The Jongnan sect is one of the great sects in the world, comparable to the Manhwa sect. Yeonshin expresses his desire to meet the masters of the Jongnan sect in person, but he couldn't show his face to the important guests because of his mother's death during his birth, following an order from his father. He questions whether his father ordered this, and a servant confirms and apologizes to him, showing sadness and disappointment. Yeonshin decides to observe the masters from afar. The clan members wonder who the people who arrived are. They believe that visiting important people would be an honor for the clan. The patriarch awaits the arrival of the masters, when it is announced that the Jongnan sect masters are already on site. As Yeonshin watches their arrival, a noble-looking elf arrives, leaving everyone surprised by your appearance. She is identified as of a noble race. Yeonshin observes the elf, and remembers that in the books they are described as mysterious and immortal beings, and how humans see her as a deity. He feels a mysterious energy that surrounds the elf. This energy condensed in his body is exhaled naturally. The patriarch and the others are surprised by the elf's presence. He expresses his honor for Master's visit to his humble clan, and he introduces himself as the patriarch, Young Dae-myung. The elf thanks her for the hospitality and introduces herself as Elder Yo Il-shin of the Jongnan sect. The patriarch is surprised to learn that she is an elder of a noble race from the Jongnan sect, and apologizes for not recognizing the divinity. She asks him to raise his head. The patriarch explains that he has waited a long time for the Jongnan sect. Yeonshin ponders the elf's age. Considering her noble appearance and status in the Jongnan sect, the patriarch guides her to another location, and as she walks through the mansion, Yeonshin watches her from afar as the clansmen bow. She notices the presence of the protagonist staring at her with a smile. Yeonshin realizes that he has been noticed by Elder Yo-il-shin and greets her, showing respect. The patriarch also notices the presence of his son and introduces Yeonshin as his third son. The elder praises Yeonshin's bright eyes and intelligence. The patriarch apologizes to the elder for his son's lack of education. He feels embarrassed, admitting that Yeonshin is a problem in the family. Elsewhere, the protagonist reveals that he had a new perspective after seeing the energies of the martial masters of the Jongnan sect. Yeonshin explains that he didn't know where to train after creating the Jung clan's martial art and was wondering what he should train. He holds his sword looking at the blade, and he decides that it would be good to train with swords. Two men talk to Elder Yo Il-shin in a room. One of the men confirms that the place is better than expected. They comment that with so much energy from the land, the tyrannical sword tribe would want this place. Elder Yo Il-shin believes that the tyrant sword tribe will likely attack, and that this would result in sacrifices for the clan. The two men discuss the possibility of attacking the tyrannical sword tribe before they reach the walls. Elder Yo Il-shin considers the possibility, but appears worried. It mentions the existence of the 13 heavens of the Tiran sword tribe, being the most powerful and problematic group to deal with. She even instructs men to keep their sword auras sharp and take a sip of tea. Elder Yo Il-shin remembers watching the protagonist and how he stood out from the others, thinking he was a strange child. At night, in a dormitory, Yeonshin meditates, a bright blue energy surrounding him. He feels intense energy at his Baihui point, and you notice that your Baihui acupuncture point is more open than ever. The amount of energy going through your head has increased significantly. He fears losing consciousness due to the high amount of energy. Yeonshin is scared of what is happening to his body. He believes his life expectancy is less than 5 years, and you feel scared and insecure about your future. Yeonshin walks alone at night, looking at the night landscape. Yeonshin wonders if he can stop what is happening to his body, even though he has completely mastered the Jung clan's martial arts. Suddenly he feels something strange, and he is surprised, without reaction, for a brief moment. He notices a sinister energy coming from one side, and he runs towards the source of this energy. As he approaches, he notices a strong smell of blood, noticing an unusual silence in the mansion, and he avoids it easily and passes through it without difficulty. But he stops suddenly, surprised by the scene he just saw. He finds several bloody bodies, a true massacre. He realizes that he hadn't noticed something like this happening inside the mansion. Walking among the bodies, he wonders if it was the trap that killed them. He takes a closer look at a body, and he realizes that the victims are members of the Jung clan. He wonders if the assassins have overwhelming martial skills, when someone wonders how there are still survivors. The protagonist encounters a group of men who stare at him. A bald man criticizes him for not hiding, and another says that Yeonshin has a short life and sends him to the next life. Yeonshin stared at them in silence. The enemy says he will eliminate you because he was ordered to, and that it is not personal. Yeonshin prepares to fight. The big man is strong and advances against the protagonist. Yeonshin grabbed him by the arm, leaving the man surprised by the movement, and using crushing force, he breaks the man's arm. The man screams in pain, while Yeonshin watches him, showing no emotions. The group of men do not understand what happened. They continue to watch the protagonist, apprehensively, while the bald man agonizes in pain on the floor. Yeonshin faces everyone, emanating energy from his body. The man draws his blade and, still apprehensive, asks who he is. Yeonshin raises his sword and introduces himself as the third son of the clan. Yeonshin turns and starts heading towards the enemies. He steps onto the ground, and an energy surges from his feet. The man manages to get up, furious, calling the protagonist a bastard. With a single clean attack, Yeonshin cuts off the man's head. The man, at first, doesn't understand what happened, but he notices that his vision is spinning as he looks at Yeonshin. The protagonist defeats the enemy with a single blow. Everyone is shocked by what the protagonist is capable of doing. He activates his ability and begins an intense battle against the invaders. Yeonshin defeats all enemies with extreme ease, watching their bodies lying on the ground, sighing in relief. He comments that it was the first time he used the sword enchanted, but you already understand how it works. He hears someone saying that it was impressive. Yeonshin watches another group of enemies approaching. A man observes the scene and comments that those guys were defeated because they let their guard down. Yunshin wonders what he's talking about. The man praises Yunshin, saying that he is very good with the sword, even though he is so young, and asks if he has trained the enchanted sword his entire life. Yunshin then asks if he is from the Blood Flame cult. The man responds no, but claims that the guys he defeated were members of the cult of the Blood Flame. The man claims to belong to the Tyrannical Sword Tribe cult. Yunshin is surprised to learn that the Tyrant Sword Tribe and the Blood Flame cult are together. He remembers that the 13 heavens are the cruelest and most powerful in all of Murim, and understands that the Blood Flame cult and the Tyrant Sword Tribe, which are part of the 13 heavens, are there. Yunshin questions the reason for the presence of 2 organizations from the 13 heavens in that place, but the man replies that it is none of his business. Then, Yunshin asks if they know him, since he's answering their questions instead of attacking him. One of the men questions what Yunshin is doing. Yunshin watches the group of men carefully, and he asks if the man knows that his family belongs to the Desolate Fortress, the best secondary sect in Murim. Yunshin warns him that killing him would cause trouble, even for someone from the Tyrant Sword Tribe. Suddenly, they see an explosion and a man being thrown violently. The man falls rolling to the ground, unable to get up. Yunshin watches him closely and recognizes him immediately. He realizes that one of the men belongs to the Jongnan sect. Yunshin looks up and sees someone being thrown. He recognizes the person passing by him. He is surprised to see that it is the injured elder Yeo Il-shin. He realizes she is fighting an enemy as she falls to the ground. Using the tip of the sword, she tries not to lose her balance. Injured, she supports herself on the floor. Yunshin wonders who the enemy is, since the sword goddess is so disoriented. A new enemy emerges. Yunshin feels a powerful energy approaching. Anxia Yeo Il-shin faces the enemy. A mysterious man appears, emanating a powerful aura. Floating in the air, he slowly descends to the ground. Yunshin wonders who the mysterious man is. The mysterious man advances, surrounded by a dark aura. Yunshin carefully observes the man's figure. He notices the sinister energy that surrounds him. The mysterious man fixes his gaze straight on Yunshin. The protagonist feels lightheaded just with eye contact. One of the enemies bows, calling the man leader. The others continue to revere the leader. Yunshin understands that that man is the leader of the Tyrant Sword Tribe. The leader of the Tyrant Sword Tribe is introduced, an imposing man who reigns over the tribe and is part of the 13 heavens, considered a harbinger of disaster in Jianghu. Yunshin wonders how such a powerful man would be in a place like that. He knows that they are all dead anyway. Yunshin watches the leader of the Tyrant Sword Tribe and decides to test himself. Yunshin runs towards the enemy. He approaches quickly, leaving the enemy surprised, attacking him with his sword. The enemy tries to block the attack, but is caught off guard, and his heart is pierced by Yunshin. Elder Yeo Il-shin and the leader of the Tyrant Sword Tribe are surprised, just like the remaining members of the Tyrannical Sword Tribe. Yunshin proves to be merciless, facing the leader of the Tyrannical Sword Tribe. He then asks if the leader would really kill him, even after everything he's done. The remaining enemies call him crazy. The leader of the Tyrannical Sword Tribe orders them to stop. He claims that Yunshin has the best fighting spirit among everyone there. Elder Yeo Il-shin and the others are surprised. The leader of the Tyrannical Sword Tribe says he will let him live, but Yunshin claims he can't kill him. He takes his sword and points it at the leader, revealing that he is the only grandson of the former leader of the Desolate Fortress Divine Squad. Anxia Yeo Il-shin is surprised upon discovering that Yunshin is the grandson of the former leader of the Divine Sword Squad, the best squad in the Desolate Fortress. The leader of the Tyrannical Sword Tribe explains that the Desolate Fortress was created by the imperial family to prevent conspiracies from Murim's forces, and it is prudent not to get involved with them. But he claims that this is not the reason why he let Yunshin live. The leader says he liked the protagonist, since his nature and spirit are worthy of a powerful martial artist. He states that he would have accepted Yunshin as a disciple if he were not tied to the Desolate Fortress. Elder Yeo Il-shin and the others are surprised by the revelation. By raising his sword, the leader of the Tyrannical Sword Tribe stabs it into the ground. He says he will let Yunshin out of there, and he declares that he will not allow any other sect or clan to set foot on that land. The leader of the Tyrannical Sword Tribe and his men leave. He walks away, looking back, and he says he will always be open to a duel with Yunshin, and warns him to look for him when he's ready to take revenge. As they walk away, Elder Yeo Il-shin and the protagonist observe the scene, and Yunshin realizes the overwhelming difference in power between them. Elsewhere, Yunshin watches his father with sadness in his eyes. Patriarch Yeongdem-young is on the verge of death. Yunshin approaches his father and introduces himself. The patriarch asks why he is so strong. Yunshin explains that this is the Jung clan's movement technique, which he created and mastered. The patriarch, surprised, asks if he really created that. At that moment, the patriarch remembers when Yunshin came to him saying he had created a martial art based on the clan's technique, and how angry he was about that. He began to scold his son for changing the clan's martial art. The patriarch also remembers how he left Yeonshin shaken with his harsh words, without realizing the genius of that child. He regrets having treated his son so badly all these years. Patriarch Jung Dae-myung finally understands the true essence of the Jung clan's art of movement, and recognizes that this is the sacred art created by the Jung clan. He cries, lamenting his ignorance and foolishness. He realizes that his third son was responsible for creating the clan's sacred art. Then, he holds Yeonshin's hand, and he says his son has the qualities of a founder, recognizing Yeonshin as a true genius. His last words before dying were, "You are my son." Still holding his father's hand, Yeonshin pays his condolences, and his older brother mourns his father's death. Yeonshin then gets up, and he looks at his father's body. He calls for the head butler, and asks about her younger sister, Hye-ah. The butler explains that she is safe as her acupuncture point was blocked and she was hidden so the assassins wouldn't find her. Then Yeonshin calls his brother, and he says that they should raise Hye-ah in the Jongnan sect. They will accept her because she has an exceptional affinity with 5 elements. The older brother asks what Yeonshin will do now. Yeonshin replies that he will take care of himself. He watches elder Yeo Il-shin enter the room. The protagonist looks at the Ancient One, and he asks her if she's leaving now. And she confirms. She explains that now that the leader of the tyrant sword tribe has become involved, she must immediately report this to the Jongnan sect. Then she asks Yeonshin if he will go to the desolate fortress where his mother's family is. Head down, he just confirms. Yeonshin says he has nowhere else to go, and he needs to get stronger. Elder Yeo Il-shin suggests he go to Zongnan Mountain with her. Yeonshin considers receiving such an offer from an elder of a large sect to be a great honor. She says she intends to recommend him as a disciple of the sect leader, leaving everyone surprised by the offer. Yeonshin asks if that would be possible. Elder Yeo Il-shin explains that this would be possible for him. Yeonshin knows that as a direct disciple of the Jongnan sect leader, he could learn the absolute sacred art, and furthermore, the leader of the Jongnan sect is one of the few great martial masters among the top 10 swordsmen in the world. Then he says he won't forget the great kindness she showed him, and he apologizes for turning down the offer. Ancien Yeo Il-shin smiled slightly, and tells Yeonshin not to worry about it, as she just wanted someone talented like him to deal with the tyrant sword tribe. Again, Yeonshin apologizes for refusing her offer, and she says it's okay, and that the doors of the Jongnan sect will always be open to him. Then Yeonshin says he has a question for her. He knows that she is one of the oldest people among the noble races, and asks if she knows the method to obtain the fruit of the world tree. She is surprised by the question, and he explains that the fruit of the world tree is protected by the leader of the desolate fortress, who was recognized by the emperor as king and an equal. The fruit is said to grant eternal life and youth to those who eat it, being a treasure from heaven. Yeonshin wonders if he would gain more life if he ate the fruit. Elder Yeo Il-shin explains that she has not lived even half her life, and therefore has no authority over the world tree. And all he knows is that the leader of Desolate Fortress can give the fruit to others. Yeonshin says he will go to the Desolate Fortress. The elder then says that it will not be easy to obtain the fruit, as it is a sacred item, even for noble races. He claims he doesn't know any other way, and he doesn't have a choice either. All you can do is become leader of the Divine Sword Squad and achieve great feats. Elder Yeo Il-shin says she will cheer him on from afar. She explains that she needs to leave to bring updates to her sect, and it says that the Cliff Swordsman and the Fist of the Neutral Spirit will help clear the place. With that, Elder Yeo Il-shin leaves. Meanwhile, the protagonist makes a sign of respect for the Ancient One. At dawn, the next day, Yeonshin thanks again the help of the Cliff Swordsman and the Neutral Spirit Fist. They say there is no need for thanks as it is their clan, and that they also had a part in this tragedy. Someone calls Yeonshin, who turns around. His older brother and niece approach him. The older brother apologizes for everything that happened in the clan, and promises to be a good big brother to him in the future. Then Yeonshin tells him that he must train hard because his life depends on it. He stops his niece, Hye-ah, as she calls him uncle. Yeonshin tells his brother to protect Hye-ah, and he asks the chief butler where he will go. The chief explains that there are small branches of the Jung clan in various places in Nanyang, and since the clan's bloodline is still alive, he will take care of the clan's remaining assets. So Yeonshin says that he will go to the desolate fortress and hopes to meet them again soon, and thinks that since the head butler knows martial arts, he will be of great help. The head butler confirms that they meet again, so Yeonchi wishes him to live a comfortable life and take care of himself. He observes in surprise at the young master's request, while Yeonshin leaves alone. The head butler wonders if he really expects him to live a comfortable life, while remembering that none of the descendants of the Jung clan had said anything like that to him since he was taken in by the previous patriarch. Yeonshin walks past a crowd of people and enters an inn. He puts his things on a table, observing the city from a balcony, and he says it's finally here. He hears someone say that Desolate Fortress is really amazing, and that people from all parts of the plains are gathered there. But it's been chaotic in the restaurants lately, as the martial artists who came to take the entrance tests are always drunk. Yeonshin wonders if there is an entry test into the Desolate Fortress. When a boy approaches asking if he came to take the entrance test, they stare at each other for a moment. Then the boy introduces himself as Haeon Wanchang and says he was fascinated to see a challenger younger than him. Yeonshin introduces himself as Young Yeonshin from Shinyue County. Haeon Wanchang comments that Yeonshin's journey there must have been easy, as he came from a nearby place, and he says he had to fight bandits from the Green Forest and swim against pirates from the Pirate Fortress, and that the pirates' aquatic martial arts were really brutal. Yeonshin remembers that he also had to fight bandits and sleep in the middle of the forest until he reached the city, but it confirms that his journey really was an easy one. Haeon Wanchang looks back quickly and suggests they become friends and share information about the test if they have any. Yeonshin asks if there really is a test. Haeon Wanchang is surprised by the question, and he explains that it is known as the Desolate Fortress test. He says that the Desolate Fortress is different from normal martial arts groups, and that those who want to become civil servants must be versed in both martial arts and literature, and that there is a test just to enter the Desolate Fortress. That's why so many people are gathered there. He further explains that it doesn't matter whether Yeonshin has foundations or not, because the moment he joins them, opportunities and teachings will be offered, and that there are countless people who have learned various martial arts so that they can pass the test. Desolate Fortress, the strongest martial group in the world, and the place of martial arts that makes everyone's heart beat faster. People say that if you want to conquer the world with just one weapon, you must go to the Desolate Fortress, as the imperial family that rules the Central Plains would take measures to control martial arts groups. All the elixirs and advanced martial arts gathered from all over the world are waiting there. Haeon then says that some people think big sects with traditions are better, but they don't know what they're saying. He asks how martial groups created by mere commoners could be stronger than the Desolate Fortress. If that were possible, they could create an empire and be the emperor. Yeonshin says he understands. Haeon goes on to say that almost no one can pass the Desolate Fortress test on the first try. Yeonshin asks if it really is. What a boring guy. The kid doesn't stop talking. Even the protagonist is fed up just giving dry answers. He explains that there may be 1 in 1,000 that passes, but they are usually the leaders of the next generation of renowned martial arts clans that are rising in the world and gaining fame. Yeonshin says he understands, so Haeon suggests they take the test together the next day. Yeonshin just nods, leaving Haeon Wanchang surprised. He tells Yeonshin that he seems very calm and not to worry as he will guide him. Internally, Yeonshin is happy to be able to join him as long as he passes the test, as he doesn't want to ask his mother's family for help, as he doesn't know where they live or what they look like. The next day, in front of the fortress, Yeonshin and Haeon Wanchang observe the place, impressed. They approach the gate, while Yeonshin appears to be confident. He realizes that he has finally arrived at the Desolate Fortress. A man hands Yeonshin a sign saying he is number 13. Yeonshin confirms that he received the plaque, and look around you, looking at the other candidates who will take the test. Examiners also observe candidates. Haeon starts to explain about the first exam to Yeonshin. He says that each candidate will pass if the supervisor accepts his plate, but will fail if he returns it, and that the second exam is a tournament. Yeonshin asks if there is a third exam. Haeon Wanchang stops and thinks about it. Haeon explains that the third exam is an interview with the Lord of the Desolate Fortress. Yeonshin is surprised to learn that he will be the Lord himself. Haeon explains that many martial artists come to Xiangyang because of this chance, hoping to have a conversation with an absolute master, as this is an incredible opportunity. Yeonshin is thoughtful, and look again at your sign. The supervisor explains that the first exam is about rapid sword arts, and tell them to demonstrate their fastest sword strike. The supervisor says he will observe and judge. Nervous, Haeon says he will go first. The supervisor watches Haeon Wanchang. Yeonshin mentally says that he needs to show a quick sword technique. Thinking the test looks simple, Haeon holds his sword, catching the protagonist's attention, who realizes that Haeon has a well-honed spirit, and he's even stronger than some of the bums he saw on the way there. Meanwhile, Hyun executes his sword move, using your best swift sword technique, and the supervisor watches the movement. The audience watches Hyun Wanchang. They comment that he looks different from the other candidates. While he is nervous to know if he passed, the supervisor says his presentation wasn't bad, and he can hand over his plaque. Hyun Wanchang thanks him, and the supervisor calls the next candidate, and he wishes Yeonshin good luck. Yeonshin observes Hyun Wanchang and walks towards the supervisor. People comment that Yeonshin really is a candidate, and a man says he has courage. If he is from another province, he will be able to show more sword techniques in front of a desolate fortress martial artist, and receiving such unique advice is incredibly precious. Yeonshin stops in front of the supervisor. They stare at each other for a moment, and they greet each other by nodding their heads. The supervisor says he can start. Yeonshin executes his sword movement. A powerful air pressure surges around you, leaving both the supervisor and the audience surprised. Upon finishing the movement, Yeonshin observes his sword. Haeon's mouth drops open when he sees Yeonshin's technique. The supervisor watches him and his sword, and it says that the future of the desolate fortress is there. The audience is surprised by the supervisor's statement. He asks Yeonshin to hand over his plaque and look at the protagonist's license plate number with a serious look. He says Yeonshin can have his way, then calling the next candidate. Yeonshin walks towards the next phase of the test, while Haeon follows him. He asks if Yeonshin is the son of a famous family. The protagonist responds that this doesn't change anything, because in the desolate fortress, what matters are martial arts, talent, and effort. Haeon now knows that Yeonshin really plans to pass the desolate fortress test. The protagonist then says that just like him, Hyun Wanchang has the same goal. The boy is surprised and confirms that it is. He thanks Yeonshin and says he will go on his way. From afar, Yeonshin hopes that the kind and talkative Hyun Wanchang will pass the second exam. Already in an inn, Yeonshin is meditating, remembering that the second exam is a tournament where he will compete against others with his martial arts. He realizes he has 3 weeks until the second exam and decides to train his skills. He plans to train the Jung clan's movement art and swift sword arts, just like the origin writing skill, an amplified chi movement technique. 3 weeks later, Yeonshin and other candidates wait for the tournament to begin. He waits in front of the gate, and a guard tells everyone to wait until they are called. With this, all candidates wait. A man watches the guard, and he says he's discouraged. Someone comments that the white clothes mean he is at an elementary level, and he asks how the guard's energy can be so strong. Haeon sees it and calls Yeonshin Young Lord Young. Hyun Wanchang observes Yeonshin and comments that he has grown even more, and he says he achieved something. He watches Yeonshin, and he says that winning is not the most important thing in this exam. Even though there are only 1 or 2 fights in the tournament, it is enough to attract the attention of the masters of the desolate fortress, but he says this part is more difficult, as it is possible to win a fight and still fail. Hyun explains that the problem is that exam proctors will have higher standards today, because you heard that Namgong's White Keelan is competing in the desolate fortress test today. Yeonshin remembers Namgong's White Keelan, and Hyun Wanchang confirms that it is. It is said that the White Keelan of Namgong eliminated a notorious group of bandits before he turned 15, and who defeated all the rising fighters in the 8 Great Families Dragon and Phoenix tournament when he was just 18 years old. Yeonshin asks what a young fighter from the Namgong family, who already has martial dignity and is trying to join the desolate fortress, lacks. Haeon explains that it is because he is the son of a concubine and cannot become the patriarch. If someone becomes the captain of the desolate fortress lord, they will be in a position similar to that of a patriarch of the 8 great families, having more power. The desolate fortress maintains the order of the Jianghu in the center of the central plains. The protagonist looks around when a guard calls for Jung Yeonshin from Shinyue County. Hyun Wanchang is apprehensive when he hears Yosin Hin called first. Yeonshin calmly becomes thoughtful, and he says he hopes to see him again in the desolate fortress. This leaves Hyun Wanchang unresponsive. As Yeonshin walks towards the tournament venue, Haeon shouts that they will see each other. The supervisor watches the fighters. Just like the audience, both face each other. Then the supervisor tells the duel to begin. A white-haired man wields a sword, laughing maniacally. Yeonshin observes his opponent without understanding that attitude. The white-haired man then says that the protagonist's final destiny is despair. Suddenly, Yeonshin quickly advances and attacks his opponent, who is thrown to the ground without even realizing what happened, being defeated with a single blow. The protagonist watches the scene, without understanding how that man could be so weak.